The Lions do some gold digging in overtime. Big Ben starts for the Steelers, but was it the right move? And what is with all of these mannequin challenges? All of this and more next on the Fantasy Dopes podcast. Welcome to yet another edition of the Fantasy Dopes podcast. I'm your host, Jillian Parker. And before I introduce my fellow dope, John Fazio, we have some exciting news to share from our father figure of the podcast. Michael has a new baby boy, and he had his baby yesterday. And I hear it's a big baby. 9 pounds, 2 ounces. Baby Vance and Mama are doing very well. And we just want to wish a congratulations to Mike and his family.
Congratulations, Herbert. I know you hate saying your name on this, but I don't care. I'm saying it for the people. They want to know. Congratulations, big man.
We hope we have him back here soon, and we wish him restless nights and plenty of poopy diapers from here on out. With that, we're going to bring John back in. Welcome, John. What's going on?
Hello, Jillian. It is nice to hear your voice once again on this podcast. Once again, Michael. Hope you're doing well. God bless. I know you're out there on the Twitterverse right now. So if you listen to us somehow in the next day or so, give us a shout out on the Twitter. We always love it. But he should be able to join us later this week when we do our Week 10 Dope Ranking show. So tune in. Hopefully he's available. And I hear that you were covering Game 7 of the World Series last week. How was that? Were you there?
I wasn't there, unfortunately. I was at the office doing some behind-the-scenes work for the game, but what a game. That was one of the best World Series games I've seen in my lifetime.
I have to admit that was one of the greatest games, and I don't want to shortchange any of our listeners out there if they weren't really following it, but we kind of left them on edge the last time we were on. We had mentioned, I think I had mentioned that Zobrist had doubled in a run in the 10th to give them the lead, and that wound up being the game winner for them. They won 8-6 and 10. Zobrist became the MVP of the series basically because of that one hit, and Chicago was celebrating like it never celebrated before. I think I heard that the crowd gathering at the parade was either the 7th or 8th largest human. It was the 7th largest human gathering in history.
Yep. And they think it was the first celebration-wise. The other ones had mostly been for religious purposes. So just to celebrate like a party, basically. It was the 7th largest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with a win like that and the way that they had won it and just the waiting time that they had to go through, that people went through, the amazing stories that came out of Chicago, people writing on the walls in chalk, basically commemorating loved ones that they had lost, Cub fans that never got to see the light of day of a championship, now kind of bringing them into their present, which is very, very chilling, and it's just really, really cool, a lot of the stories that came out of there. So definitely a memorable World Series.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more baseball on this podcast. I said this earlier, we're not just a football podcast. We'll be covering baseball once that ship starts going around January, February. So right now, we're keeping it with football. Let's get back to football here, and let's get to our Week 9 recap, shall we?
Yes, I just want to say I really hope that, because I listened to last week's podcast even though I wasn't on it, and if you were waiting for this week to find out what happened, then shame on you.
Hey, I gotta give a disclaimer. I know if people aren't listening, they're not fans of baseball. I give them props, but I had to let it be said.
All right, and with that, since baseball season has officially come to a close, we will move on to our Week 9 recap. And we're going to highlight some of our obvious start players that had memorable fantasy days, both great and bad. And we can begin with a Thursday night game between the Falcons and the Bucks. And that Mike Evans is some fantasy player.
Man, like I've said in the past, if he stays healthy, he should finish as a top 5 wide receiver and maybe top 5 flex guy overall. All the injuries that guys are sustaining throughout the year, tough to stay on the field. And speaking of which, I want to mention that he did suffer a concussion late in this game, but he came back to practice on Monday. It's looking like he's going to practice limited throughout the whole week and should be able to face the Bears on Sunday. But more updates will be coming out as we roll along. But getting back to his game, piled up 150 yards and he scored 2 touchdowns. I believe he leads the league in touchdowns scored. And he also had one of the craziest catches of the year. It was pretty much like an Odell Beckham-esque one-handed catch. I can't say enough about this guy. If you don't have him, sucks to be you. I mean, that's plain and simple. And I also want to mention his quarterback, Jameis Winston, got a little banged up in this game as well. I know he had to leave the game in the fourth quarter, but he was looking like on the sideline that he wanted to come back into this game. He had that competitive fierceness in his eyes as he was sitting on the sidelines and watching Mike Glennon finish the game out. So don't think he's going to wear a knee brace on his knee. Think he should be okay for the game again against the Bears secondary, a weak Bears secondary. So I like this matchup of Evans and Winston against the Bears. I think if you have both of these guys, I like them as starters once again this week. And I just want to mention, I think I mentioned this earlier, the Bucs face the Saints twice, weeks 14 and 16. So if you wind up in the playoffs and you start in week 14, I mean, you're celebrating because the Saints are the worst. They have the worst defense of the league, and it's just 2 and 2 together. There's no way that these guys can't hit. So if you got them, fire them up, baby.
Yeah, I mean, who does Evans think he is making these one-handed Odell Beckham catches?
I mean, he's a sophomore. He's trying to get some of the spotlight. I mean, I don't blame him. He's been that boy.
And my boy, Julio Jones, just gotta love him. He was just his old Julio Jones self. 111 yards and a touchdown. No big deal. Freeman was a bit of a letdown. He didn't get to reach the end zone at all. But it's tough to sit him. Looking back, it's not like it was a terrible start. But how about a couple of players that you talked about on the last episode? Our tight ends, Austin Hooper and Cameron Brate. Hooper had a nice day in Jacob Tammy's absence, and Cameron Brate is gaining trust with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, both these tight ends had a great game. I know Freeman wasn't really the beneficiary of a touchdown, but he had himself a pretty productive day, both in standard and PPR scoring. So if you had him in your lineup, it's not like you were really down your luck. You kind of just take those points and chalk it up to gameplay. But in any case, their tight end, Hooper, the Falcons tight end, caught 3 passes for 46 yards, and he scored a touchdown for those dirty birds. And he was one of my favorite deep cuts going into the weekend. We touched up on him in our last podcast. I mean, he didn't completely wow the fantasy community, but if you started him in your tight end spot, you were feeling pretty satisfied. It's like, you finished a nice little 3-course meal and you weren't too full, but you weren't too hungry. So you're in that middle in between there. The other Falcons tight end, Levine Toilolo, also found the end zone in this game. That was just due to the fact that Matt Ryan was just kind of putting the Bucs on their toes and spreading the ball around pretty much to everybody. I believe Taylor Gabriel was the wide receiver to catch the other touchdown. So Matt Ryan's been by far and away the best fantasy quarterback thus far this year. He's thrown for almost 3,000 yards already. He's at 2,980 currently. And he's pretty much shown everyone in the NFL that he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I mean, whether that translates into the playoffs remains to be seen. He's not really a great fantasy quarterback in the playoffs, but he'll probably finish as a top 5 quarterback starter in fantasy. So he's got upside. He's got his weapons. He can spread the ball around. It's hard to ignore his presence. He does have a couple of games ahead of him. I know he's going to Philly next weekend. He's not as great on the road as he is at home. And he does play the Cardinals as well. So I wouldn't really hesitate to put him in your lineup. It's just more or less like, looking at his matchups and kind of worrying, but at the end of the day, it's just hard to pass him up. And going to Cameron Brate, he kind of saved his fantasy day with a garbage time touchdown, and he finished his night with 5 catches and 43 yards. So if for some reason Mike Evans has a setback and he misses the game against Chicago, Brate automatically, to me, becomes an obvious start at tight end. You could even want to get cute and start him in a flex if you really need him there with a couple teams on bye. So he should have a really favorable matchup, and tight ends usually eat against the Bears. So he's a guy I would fire up without hesitation.
Yes, John. Certainly good plays at a thin tight end position if you have both players. And we also got to see the committee from the Bucs in this game. It may not be a committee this coming week for Tampa Bay, though.
Yeah, another week, another injury to these running backs for the Bucks. It's kind of crazy. I mean, Anton Smith, he was looking okay. He wasn't having a good day fantasy wise, but he was looking all right for a starter that just had to get launched into the lineup. But unfortunately, he went down the fourth quarter of this game, and rookie Peyton Barber kind of took the rest of this game to the end. And I believe he finished with a 10.5 point day in PPR. So for that, you kind of take it because he was, a 50-50 guy. But for Smith, he's actually was placed on IR with a knee injury, and unfortunately won't see the field again. So he joins Charles Sims on the IR, who was also out with a knee injury, and Doug Martin, who's having some issues with his hamstring, and is still very questionable to start against the Bears. So it's looking like Peyton Barber is going to get his shot to start this game completely and maybe even get 15 to 20 carries, maybe 25, depending on game script. So if you want to look for a cheap option in DraftKings or FanDuel, and you're looking for a guy that will have a lot of production, definitely go after Peyton Barber. He's going to see a lot of the field this week.
And stay tuned for our waiver wire picks later in the show. We'd like to turn your attention from the Thursday night game and get right into our Week 9 recap in full. Now, the way we're going to work through our recaps will be almost the same as we do our dope ranking show. We're going to highlight the players we talk about from that show and analyze each performance to see how accurate we were in our predictions. And since Michael isn't with us on the show tonight, John, we're going to get to your predictions and talk about who had some big games and who had some duds. And let's start off in the smoke 'em if you got 'em category, leading with the running back in Baltimore, Terrence West.
I know I can hear Michael's voice shouting out in the hospital saying, "I told you so, Johnny. I told you so." Look, it was another bad game for West. He only ran for 21 yards on 15 rushing attempts, and he only had a catch for an irrelevant 6 yards. But he wasn't alone in the embarrassing running game department, because backup and Herbert's favorite deep cut, Kenneth Dixon, didn't do dick either. He rushed 9 times for 13 yards and had 2 catches for a donut. So the Ravens' backfield in general has just been underwhelming for the season. Obviously got rid of Justin Forsett. They went with West, who they thought would be their starting guy. Hasn't really blown up too much, except for that one game against the Giants. But I still think West has been their best back thus far. And it doesn't look like he's getting pushed out of their starting job just yet. He has a favorable matchup next week against the lowly Browns in Baltimore. So you got to think he's going to have a good game. I'm not saying he's going to have a great game, and maybe I won't have him in the smoke him if you got him category, but he's definitely going to be productive, in my opinion. I mean, it's just they're the Browns, and they're going to be in Baltimore, their former city. Just not a good look in Cleveland right now, so I'm firing up anybody that's starting against the Browns in my lineups.
Could we actually talk about how this Thursday night the game is the Browns and the Ravens? I mean, why?
They have to have like an obligation for every team to be on Thursday night.
And that's the matchup they chose?
That's their divisional rivals, so they're trying to push that moniker and theme like the Falcons and Bucks
yeah.
but they're not. It's not a juicy
no
divisional matchup,
It's gonna be kind of a boring. Like, I'm not looking forward as a Thursday night game. You just want something a little more action packed, a little more exciting. I get they're division rivals, but
yeah, I just feel like I said they're just obligated to air some sort of rivalry, and they have to get every team on the air at some point in the year. So it's just one of those like week 10, here you go, here's a game.
Here's a
have
game,
some fun
watch it.
with it. Yeah, have some fun watching this. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, a lot of these primetime games, even the Monday night and Sunday night games, haven't really been living up to par. So
no, we should have this coming week though. Sunday night and Monday night are good games. Monday night we think so just because we're biased as Giants fans, but the Sunday night game should be a good game. What do we got? The Seahawks? Is it the Seahawks and the Patriots?
yes,
Yeah,
you are correct.
that should be a good game.
New England. Yeah, I mean NBC usually gets like the prime plum, and that's a kind of a tongue twister there, but they get the plum of the matchup of the week. So they've had a couple of good ones. Last night wasn't that great. The Raiders game was, if you're a Raiders fan, it was great.
Sure.
So, and if you had a couple of fantasy guys, which we'll get to later on the show, you were probably celebrating as well. But yeah, I mean, It's just the way that the NFL unfolds, and unfortunately, that's could be the reason why viewership's down. We may never know. It's an election year too, so it could be that.
Yeah. Can't wait for that. We won't even get into that. Just can't wait for that to be over tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get back on track. We're going to talk about someone who I am so happy I was able to pick up last week and has been doing so well for me since Mr. Consistent Michael Thomas on the Saints, and he is just not disappointing, John.
He's becoming like a fanboy of mine. I'm about to buy myself a Michael Thomas jersey because I'm so happy I own this guy.
He's making it look easy.
Yeah, he is. He's looked like one of the best rookie wide receivers this year. He's doing it with arguably 3 other dynamite weapons in their passing game. Brandon Cooks, who's an obvious start. He didn't have a touchdown yesterday, but he's still pretty productive. Willie Snead, who's kind of getting the short end of the stick with the wide receiver core. And Kobe Fleener, who's supposed to be like a nice little tight end to them to put up a lot of production, but I'm not seeing much from him, except for a game or two so far. So it's pretty amazing that a rookie is getting this much love. And Drew Brees can't get enough of this guy either. He talks about him after post games. He clearly likes to give him the ball. So in this game against the 49ers, he scored 2 touchdowns. That puts him up to 5 total this season. And he's racked up at least 4 catches and 40 yards in each game so far this season. So his production, like you said, has just been so consistent. And that's a pretty consistent day in PPR.
Oh, yeah.
The bad news, though, that's coming this coming week is that he's going up against his Broncos defense. Mm-hmm. Now, they didn't do so well against the Raiders. And we'll get into that.
No, I was just going to say that. They didn't look good at all,
no,
especially in the first half.
Exactly. And we'll get more into them as we move along in this rundown here. But the good news is that their top safety, Aqib Talib, the Saints, that is, will most likely miss this game, and they're going to be playing in New Orleans at the Superdome. So you like to think that Thomas will at least reach that threshold of 4 catches, 40 yards. And if he has another solid outing after this coming weekend, there's really no reason to believe that he is like anything else besides an obvious start in my rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even believe that someone dropped him in my league. Was it the week before last? Like, the fact that I got to pick him up, it was just, how could you not?
Can't pass up production like that, even if you have like a top wide receiver guy. This guy is just proving to time and time again that he's a consistent, reliable fantasy option. So, again, I'm rolling with this guy no matter what.
Yeah. All right, John, and we're going to get back to the Saints offense shortly and talk about the running game Sunday. But we still have a couple more players to talk about in the smoke 'em category. And let's start by discussing Randall Cobb and Mike Wallace, shall we?
We shall. Randall Cobb owners had a bit of a scare going into the halftime of this game. He was on the sideline throughout the whole first half, and he's still limited by that hamstring injury. Luckily for the owners, though, he came back into this game in the second half, and he scored a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to kind of save his fantasy value.
Luckily,
he only caught 2 passes for 14 yards, and after the game said he didn't have any setbacks to his hamstring, so at least that's good news on the front that next week he should be almost 100%. I'm not saying he will be. I doubt he will, but you got to think that he'll be more involved in the offense this coming game against the Titans of Tennessee. So it's going to be hard to bench him. He'll probably wind up near the top of my safe bets list just due to the fact that his name and his output could be much higher than it was this last week. But his injury still kind of worries me a bit. Definitely monitor his situation. Keep it at our Twitter. You'll see updates from Randall Cobb for sure. And with Mike Wallace, fantasy owners had somewhat of a roller coaster day. It's got to start like King to Ka. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that ride at Six Flags Great Adventure in my hometown of Jackson, New Jersey. But King to Ka goes from 0 to 120 in like at least a second and a half.
Yeah.
So exactly what happened with Mike Wallace. The Ravens were down to their own 5-yard line. I believe it was in the first half. And Joe Flacco pretty much just threw a slant route right to Wallace. He caught it in stride. But before you knew it, Wallace was gone into the end zone for a 95-yard touchdown. It was actually the longest touchdown in Ravens regular season history. Could you believe that? I think somebody came out and said that 96 yards was the record all time. That was in the
I was to say,
postseason.
it doesn't get much closer than 95.
That's how you light one up and spark it, Mr. Wallace. I saw that he was I saw he was listed as questionable to return after that touchdown. I was like, oh, what the hell happened? He got injured? What wound up happening was that he was so lightheaded because he was celebrating so much after the touchdown. He like ran down the field. He was getting the crowd pumped up, and he had to catch a breath. So I thought that was pretty funny. But
That's so funny.
he only had 3 more catches after that. He had over 100 yards, so that's great, obviously. It was 124 total. And Steve Smith Sr. did come back into this game. He was a dice roll in a roll in the dice category. But he only caught about 4 catches for 47 yards. So Wallace has cleared at least 95 yards in his last 3 games. And he looks to keep things going against that lowly Browns team on Thursday Night Football like we were discussing before. So it's a guy I want to look for on this game. Him and West. Those are 2 guys that I got my eyes out for. I don't want to spoil where he's going to wind up in my rankings for this week, but I just want to save some ammunition for later. In the next show, we need something for the next show, right?
Yeah, I mean, and can the Browns finally get their first win this year? Might happen.
I might not, though.
It might not, though. Give them a little hope.
I was just going to say I saw a funny tweet during that Browns game. We could talk about that Browns game a little bit while we're here. I saw they had an early 3-0 lead, and I saw somebody tweet out, wouldn't it be the first time that a Cleveland team that was up 3 blew a lead? Throwing some shade to the Indians, of course. And obviously got blown out by the Cowboys, and a large part was due to Jason Witten, their tight end.
Went off. The boy went off. I played against him, and it was painful.
He had 8 catches for 134 yards and a touchdown. Whew, have a day. And look, Dak loves him just as much as Romo did back in his day. They both look great. I mean, Dak, can't say enough about this guy. I know, look, again, it was against the Browns, but still, give him credit.
I don't want to love him, but he's making it very difficult right now.
I mean, I could say that he has the best team around him. Defensive-wise, his offense has just been clicking throughout. And scary thing is they're not using Dez a whole lot. He's been involved about 2 games this year. He's been injured with that knee injury for a couple of weeks, but Witten's been their safety blanket, and so has Cole Beasley. Both guys have been the beneficiaries of that offense thus far, and obviously Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he's just the running back god in this game. He's the best running back in the league, right in front of David Johnson, I should say. And look, Witten, he's becoming their trusted tight end guy. He's looking at him down the field. If they're in third down situations, they need a first down, they're going to go to him. So Witten's going to climb up my rankings. I think he was enrolling the dice. I don't think he's going to be there anymore much longer.
No.
So definitely like Witten. Definitely like that whole Cowboys offense going. It's exciting to watch them. It's sad to say as a Giants fan, but it is.
Yeah.
I can't deny that for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be a must start for next week. But moving on to our safe bets category and going back to the Saints offense, looks like if you had both Mark Ingram and Tim Hightower in your lineup, you were loving their performances, and I was loving Tim Hightower this week, John.
Oof. Tim Hightower and Mark Ingram. Where can we start with these guys? Let's start with Mark Ingram. Because just as I predicted in this game in our last podcast, Ingram answered the call, and he answered very, very loudly. He ran the ball down the 49ers' throats. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Finished the day with 158 yards rushing and included a nice 75-yard touchdown run, basically just showcasing his speed. He ran down that sideline like he was chasing dinner. I mean, that dude was hungry. He needed to eat, and eat he did. He also scored another touchdown on a passing catch, short one. It just completely deflated the Niners defense, pretty much like every other team in the NFL. I mean, any team that faces the 49ers, whoever the running back is, just start them because they're going to have a good game regardless. But not to be outdone, Tim Hightower had a ton of opportunity in this game as well. He wasn't as productive. I mean, how could you be? He was one of the best running backs in the game this past weekend. But he carried the ball, Hightower, 23 times for 87 yards, and he punched one into the end zone as well. If you had both of these guys, I liked both of these guys as a start. They were great starts. They didn't disappoint. They got another tough matchup, like I said earlier, against Denver, but they haven't been as ruthless on defense against the running backs as they have been against their wide receivers. That is the Broncos. It proved it Sunday night. Latavius Murray in Oakland thought it wouldn't have as great of a game. Wound up with 3 touchdowns. It's crazy. So I don't expect the production that they put up against the 49ers next weekend, but they're going to have productive days for sure.
All right, and I want to head out to MetLife Stadium and talk about a couple of the running backs in that game. Darren Sproles is the one who got the start, but Ryan Matthews was the one who wound up finding the end zone. And for the Giants, Rashad Jennings just can't get anything going. I mean, I want to talk about the run game a little bit for them later, but is there a change coming for the Big Blue, John?
There could very well be. Let's get to Sproles really quick, because I want to talk about his production and how involved he was in this game. I mean, they at first said that he's not their starter, he's not going to be involved as much, and that really wasn't the case. And I know Ryan Matthews did score. He got the touchdown in this game, but Sproles was the main back in the game for sure. And after the game, Coach Doug Peterson was like, yep, he's our starter. So, again, you got to ignore some of the coach talk, pep talk bull crap, and you just got to go with what's going on the field and how players are getting involved in the game. And if you see that a guy is overtaking someone's job, they're most likely going to get more involved until they take over. So he is a perfect candidate, Sproles, to move up the rankings even higher. But as for Jennings, we're going to mention him a little later on in the show, just because we have him in our rolling the dice rankings, and we have him with somebody else that was in there as well that's on the same team that, as I was saying, could overtake his job. So I don't want to spoil that just yet. It's a little tease for the people out there.
I think I know what you're alluding to, John, but I guess we'll have to wait. We can talk about the Lions, who struck gold in overtime. How about that finish?
Golden Tate is just proving to fantasy players that he is just as valuable as he was when people were drafting him in the 3rd round. I mean, he caught 11 passes on 12 targets. That screams great PPR value. He had 79 yards, which wasn't, a crazy day, but he had that insane catch to end the game in overtime. Won the game for the Lions against the Vikings, who are now all of a sudden in shambles. And Tate just flipped over into the end zone. And it was pretty much on a defender's back, too. It was a weird flip.
It looked really pretty dangerous.
It did look very dangerous, but he stuck it, and that's all that matters. So I hate to say this, but I think Tate seems to be back.
Yeah, he looked like a gymnastics player out there.
He did. I had him left for dead. Like, I thought this guy was on The Walking Dead. He was a zombie. And now all of a sudden he's become their guy now again. Marvin Jones has kind of taken a back seat. It'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. They enter the Week 10 on a bye. I honestly thought this guy was done, and now he's proving to pretty much everybody that he's not. He's back.
And you know who else might be back? Speaking of the Jaguars, Allen Robinson. He could be back. Feeling pretty good about it.
The Jaguars.
Don't ruin this for me, John. Don't ruin it for me.
Well, I'll give you a little Jaguars analysis a little later. How about that?
Fine. That still doesn't sound promising, though. It's not making me feel happy. But we'll move on. We'll move on to San Diego, where we had a shootout between the Titans and the Chargers. A couple of players I want you to bring up are some wide receivers, Terrell Williams, Travis Benjamin, and maybe Kendall Wright. And let's definitely not forget about reliable Antonio Gates.
Up and down plays here in San Diego on Sunday. Let's start with the positives. Tyrell Williams, their wide receiver, he's like their go-to now for Phillip Rivers. Caught 6 of 7 targets for 65 yards and a score. And you can't forget old reliable Mr. Antonio Gates. Had himself a nice little day with Hunter Henry, our favorite guy, out of the game with a concussion. Hunter!
I feel like I haven't said that in forever. Hunter Henry, we miss you.
Yes, in your British accent.
Yes.
With Gates, he caught 5 of 9 targets for 75 yards and a score. So both guys should be looking to repeat these numbers because Travis Benjamin had to leave this game early with a knee injury. He took his helmet off throughout the second half, just didn't look like he was healthy at all, and he finished the day with only a catch and 5 yards. So he's dealing with that PCL sprain, And I believe there were reports saying that he was going to be out for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden he was active for this game. So it's not good news for owners of Benjamin. Keep it here on the Twitter at Fantasy Dopes, on our website at www.fantasydopes.com for more injury news as we move along. But I'm not really too confident with Benjamin starting this coming week. But on the opposite side of the field, we got the Titans and Kendall Wright, who wasn't as much of a factor as I thought he would be. That would be Rashard Matthews being the beneficiary of this day, finding the end zone twice for 6 catches on 63 yards. So if you decided to roll the dice on him, it paid off. But as for Wright, he only had 2 catches for 64 yards. So I just think that this is a little inconsistent. It's not a fair judgment to put on the Titans. They were pretty much playing catch up. They had to throw the ball a ton. Mariota had a nice day to finish off his fantasy day. I just think Wright is a better play moving forward. He's more of a deep ball threat, and he can hit pay dirt at any time. He is a little more riskier to play, along with a lot of other wide receiver 4s and maybe 3s, but I still think he'll be somewhat of an asset in fantasy in some bye weeks. So they have their week 13 bye. They have like one of the latest buys in the league. So if you have like a couple of teams on bye and you're desperate for a start, he might not be too bad just to put in your lineup.
All right, and Dwayne Allen and Ty Montgomery both came back for their respective teams in Green Bay. And like you said last week, Allen was simply eased back into the game and finished with a catch for 15 yards, while Ty Montgomery seemed to look good coming back from his illness, but he was on a rep count, according to head coach Mike McCarthy, so that didn't do much help for fantasy owners at all.
Yeah, I mean, head coaches, they don't really care about fantasy football and its players in a fantasy aspect. So it's not really surprising that they wouldn't announce this before the game and tip their hands to the Colts. Now, Montgomery did finish with a decent day if you played him in a PPR league. Caught 3 passes for 38 yards, and he rushed 7 times for 53 yards. Didn't score, but because of his dual threat, Montgomery is a nice flex option in pretty much any league you play in, as long as he continues to stay healthy and not have any setbacks.
And a tight end that wasn't eased back in last week with their team and had another productive day would be Eric Ebron of the Lions. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's looking more and more healthy as the weeks roll along here. The Lions had high hopes for this guy since he was drafted by the team, and you can start to see this coming to fruition right now. I mean, he ended the day with 7 catches, 92 yards receiving, and if you held on to Ebron while he was injured, great move on you, because now as we approach trading deadlines in fantasy leagues, he's definitely a guy you can either buy or sell depending on your team's situation. If you have like a Gronk or an Olsen or you're just not really in it, you can certainly flip Ebron for a nice running back 2 or even a wide receiver 3. So he has good trade value right now for sure, and he also has a great buy value as well. You can still get him for relatively cheap. I like him as a buy guy. I like him as a sell guy.
All right, fair point. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on him as those trade deadlines get a little bit closer. And one more guy we'll discuss in safe bets is Corey Coleman, who came back for the Browns against the Cowboys this past week.
Yeah, it was nice to see Mr. Coleman back on the field because a lot of the fantasy community predicted he'd be one of the best rookie receivers this season. That was until he broke his hand in practice and he missed almost 2 months of the season. So in this game, he had all of his production come in the first half. He caught 3 balls for 47 yards. So you're thinking, okay, it's a nice little day. Get some garbage time in the second half. Come out with a nice game. That didn't happen. Cowboys defense pretty much clamped down the team and pretty much just on Coleman. Didn't really give him any space to run or operate. Terrell Pryor Sr., their other wide receiver, was once again the offensive scoring machine. Scored another touchdown for the Browns. And Coleman, I just think will have better days ahead of him. I think he's a great play against the Ravens Thursday night. And again, if you have him, you want to start him just to see a player play on your team in Thursday night, certainly not a bad option. I think he has a nice little day again.
And to the next tier we go. We are rolling the dice. You touched on Latavius Murray before, and I got to ask, why do you have him here? He scored 3 touchdowns.
Well, I think it was a little ignorance on my part, for sure. But I think Murray was even surprised that he found the end zone 3 times, especially against the Broncos. Now, looking back, it was a tough matchup, but Raiders fans were in this game from the start, and it's always been said by former teammates and players and coaches that the black hole in Oakland is the toughest place to play in any stadium, maybe in almost any sport. Plain and simple, the Broncos defense just crumbled. They allowed over 100 yards rushing to Latavius. And I did say in our last podcast that he would finish as a top 15 running back in fantasy, which is more and more likely the case with all these running backs getting injured. So
Yeah.
if I own Murray, I'm most likely rocking with him here on out.
And another running back on a lot of fantasy owners' radar is Jerick McKinnon, who were frustrated to say the least after his performance against the Lions this week.
Yeah, McKinnon was in our safe bets list, but I wanted to save him here to compare him to Matt Asiata, who was in our roll in the dice list. McKinnon finished with a putrid 8 yards, 7 carries. Just a huge fart he laid on the field. Asiata had 9 carries, 27 yards. Another one. And he caught 2 passes for 14 yards. I mean, look, listen, these guys didn't do anything. And believe it or not, their third string running back, Ronnie Hillman, that Ronnie Hillman, formerly of the Broncos, wound up with more carries than McKinnon and outproduced both of these guys. Now, I don't know if it was the new scheme from offensive coordinator Pat Schumer, but if you had Kyle Rudolph on your fantasy team, that's about the only Vikings player you were celebrating on your team, because this offense is going down a really bad path, and they are not doing anything about it. So I'm not saying to completely avoid these players altogether. I just don't feel comfortable starting either McKinnon or Asiata. And if you want to add Hillman as a speculative add in your league and you want to put him on your bench, you could totally do that. It's just not looking like a good scene out there in Minnesota for anybody to own in the backfield.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, Kyle Rudolph didn't even have a great game. He just happened to have a touchdown. I mean, he had a 1-yard touchdown. That was the only catch of the game for him.
That is a good day for Vikings wide receivers or tight ends. I mean, you score a touchdown, you have a good day in that offense. So
there you go.
Again, you could have went with Austin Hooper and would have had a better fantasy production day, but you got to take the touchdowns as you get them. So that in a tight end sense is a good game. Otherwise, it's not.
And somebody who had an excellent game for the Titans was DeMarco Murray, but not so much for Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry didn't even have a touch in this game before he was pulled off for a calf injury. Antonio Andrews, I believe he was their former running backup last year. He was filling in for Henry when he was taken out, and head coach Mike Mularkey said there's a good chance that Henry will miss multiple weeks. So you got to keep in mind that, like I said, the Titans bye is in week 13, so it would be a loss for owners who are hoping to use Henry during these next couple of weeks during bye weeks for other teams. So I don't want to say go out and add Antonio Andrews. I mean, you could if you want to, but it's not likely that he'll have a start with Murray being so good. And even if he gets injured, Andrews will probably only have like one spot start until Henry comes back. So I think I would just leave Andrews out. If you want to pick him up in a 16-team league and you have a room on your bench, you certainly could. But I wouldn't start him at all, for sure.
And we've had so many injuries so far this year, and we're going to add a couple more from the Jaguars-Chiefs game. Jeremy Maclin left with a groin injury that hampered him in practice late last week. And also Alan Hearns, he had to leave the game due to a concussion that he sustained.
Yeah, Hearns suffered an ankle injury as well before the concussion. I believe it was the third quarter he suffered the ankle, and the fourth quarter he got the concussion that basically got him out of the game. So not a good day for him. I just want to mention real quickly here, as we were talking about the Jaguars, Blake Bortles, once again, is Groucho. I mean, this guy lives in the dumpster. He eats the garbage, and he salvages the garbage time in fantasy. Owner beware starting him in the future. And that goes for Mr. Allen Robinson as well. Look, he had that touchdown, but it was lucky that he got it because Bortles has been one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in all of NFL.
Fair.
And he was practicing with a new coach, a new quarterback coach. That didn't seem to help this weekend. I just don't like that situation out in Jacksonville. I'm trying to avoid all those players in that offense going forward. So, it's up to the owner if they want to start him. I know Allen Robinson, he's got that potential, but he hasn't really shown me much this year. So I'd rather start Michael Thomas over him. Plain and simple. It's been so much more consistent. You can at least rely on that.
Very fair. I do not disagree with you there. But what if I've got to start both of them?
Well, you got to look elsewhere.
All
gotta
right.
look elsewhere.
There
No,
we
I mean
go.
there's certain situations where you have to start Allen Robinson, but it's one of those starts where you're like, okay, I need you to do something here, or I'm
Yeah.
gonna be really mad at you, and more than likely he's gonna let you down. So that's what you're pretty much in for. You're in for agita, as the
Yeah.
Italians would say.
Definitely are. It's tough. You don't want to sit him, but then you sit there the whole time, having a panic attack that he's not going to like have any performance.
Exactly. And for Macklin, I know you mentioned Macklin too. Again, I'm not feeling comfortable starting him either. They're playing the Panthers, and head coach Andy Reid is basically calling him day to day, but it didn't sound like he was going to be ready. I mean, he played the injury down. He just pretty much ignored it, and that's not always a good sign. And to be honest with you, I don't even think he should have been on the field. I mean, he was held to one target, I believe, didn't have a catch, and was pretty much taken out of the game. So I have Macklin in 2 leagues. I benched him in one because I could afford to. My other league, I had no choice. I had like 6 or 7 guys on a bye. So I just had a feeling something like that was going to happen. And I thought that Tyreek Hill and or Chris Conley, their other wide receivers, were going to have big games, but Nick Foles wasn't really that great. I thought he would be a little better than he was, but didn't really put up a performance that I thought he would. But with these wide receivers, Hill has the better upside. Conley may get involved, but I'm not going after him and adding him in any league. And with Kelsey, he probably gets the biggest boost out of this offense because he's pretty much been their big target guy this whole year. And it's funny. I don't know if you caught the game, but he got ejected for throwing a towel at the official, like he was trying to throw a flag, because he was held by the back of his jersey in the end zone trying to secure his second touchdown of the game. But the referees didn't call a penalty on him, and he was just pissed off that there was no penalty called for that kind of interference. So he was getting cute. He like threw the flag right in the ref's face, and he was pretty much just ejected. So I thought that was pretty funny.
That is funny. Towel in the face. I mean, let's be a little smarter here though. But all right, we're gonna talk about a game that was a little hard to watch. Sammy Coates had zero production for the Steelers, and Big Ben was back in the lineup. But do you really think that he should they have pushed him? Should he have been playing this game?
No. No, he
Just
shouldn't have
coming right
started
out
this
there and
game.
saying it.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of teased this in the beginning, and I know we kind of held off on the audience a bit, but I did this purposely just because I want to give humongous props to Ben Roethlisberger first, before I start going into this little tangent here. He's one of the toughest SOBs in sports, period. This guy had a knee surgery, comes back 2 weeks later. That's insane, and especially in this day and age. People that have knee surgery are out months.
Hmm.
This guy took 2 weeks. But to be honest with you, he just didn't look smooth out there. The only time that he looked comfortable was when they were running a no huddle offense in the last like 5 or 6 minutes of the game. Antonio Brown wasn't doing much until late in the game. He had a decent day. I think he had like an average Antonio Brown day. He had a touchdown, what have you. But yeah, Sammy Coates had like 5 targets. He dropped a couple and didn't do anything. So that's the risk you're starting with Coates. He's a rookie. He has bad drops. It's been noted many times before, especially on this podcast. And their other wide receiver, Darius Hayward-Bay, had to leave the game with a right foot ankle injury. So Eli Rogers, who I was hyped on like, what was that, week 3, finally cashed in. He had over 100 yards on 6 of 10 targets. But I mean, it was just because Marcus Wheaton was down as well. So it's just odd. I don't know. Like the offense for the Steelers couldn't get it going, and even Le'Veon Bell didn't do much. That's very surprising because he's one of the best backs in the league. So I just think Ben should have had another week off. Should have rested that knee. If he had to practice, then so be it. Like make him practice and get his reps in. But he just looked uncomfortable. It looked like he had surgery 2 weeks ago. So it's just one of those things where you have to win every game, but you also got to look out for the healthier player. And now you're going up against the Cowboys this coming weekend, and you're hoping Ben stays healthy and this offense clicks. But it's kind of interesting the way that they played this out. I didn't agree with it at all.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, when you push somebody back before they might be ready, you risk further injury or just, missing that chance to further heal and relax the area that you've injured. And then you go send him back out next week after he's pushed it. So, yeah, I don't know what you do there. I mean, I don't see them sitting him, but I don't think it's smart to play him either.
And it also kind of like looks bad on Landry Jones too. I mean, it doesn't look like they have much confidence in their backup. They're like forcing Roethlisberger to play out there, and it's not like Landry Jones is bad. He's not a fantasy option, but he's not like a bad NFL quarterback.
Right.
He's manageable. I just thought that they would manage against the Ravens, and they really didn't. So I think that loss might come back to haunt them in the end of the season. We'll see.
All right, and we're going to get to one more guy here in our Roll in the Dice segment, and that is the Giants' rookie wide receiver, Sterling Shepard.
Yes, so let's get to our Giants guys all in one shot here, shall we? So I thought Sterling Shepard was going to have a nice bounce-back game, and he did. He had 3 catches, 50 yards, and he got the touchdown. Eli Manning looked pretty good up until the fourth quarter, where he gave away a couple of interceptions, and he was Eli old self.
Yes.
There's a comedian, Vic DiBenedetto, I think that's his name. He has some excellent Giants recaps. If you want to look up his Instagram, he just goes off like an old Italian man would, and the dude like almost has a heart attack on camera. It's crazy. It's pretty funny. But he basically recaps the Giants really well. He's very entertaining, very funny guy. I can never be that funny for some reason. But in any case, Rashad Jennings, the running back, still looks hampered by that hand injury. I know, you can say that he's lost a step, which is maybe the case. He's a little older. Tough to come back from an injury like that. But their rookie running back, Paul Perkins, is looking pretty okay. Like, yes. I wouldn't say he's lighting it up, but it's interesting that he's kind of eating into Jennings' time, and Bobby Rainey wasn't really too involved. So maybe they're trying to give their rookie a shot now. I know the Giants, with their rookies, they're very hesitant to give them the ball because if they fumble, they're in the doghouse right away. So Paul Perkins, if you still have him on your fantasy team, still a good stash guy for now. You never know what could happen in the next couple of weeks. But if he's out there in the waiver, and like I said earlier, if you want to have a spot on your bench, again, another solid option if you want to have him. Just know that there's a lot of risk with a rookie running back on the Giants. So that's just taking it from a Giants fan. I know that a lot about their rookies. So owner beware.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us a bit of a heart attack there in that fourth quarter, but it was a very big win for the Giants. Before we get to our final 2 tiers, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back after this message.
Want to know which fringe players you should start or sit in your fantasy leagues? Want up-to-the-minute news and analysis from the beat reporters around the league? Follow @FantasyDopes on Twitter to get your fix and fill the void of having to worry about which player will feast or famine.
And welcome back, Dope Heads. Let's get into a couple of deep cuts before we skim through our cold cut section and give you our Week 10 waiver wire pickups. John, take it away.
Yeah, I'll skim through a couple of these here. I just want to bring up Capri Bibbs, the backup running back to Devontae Booker in Denver. Bibbs had a pretty productive day, even as a backup. He caught a 69-yard impressive touchdown catch, basically reversing field to get in the end zone. And he may be at one of the top ads this week for sure. Stay tuned for our waiver wire segment, which is coming up very shortly. Victor Cruz also was taken out of the game, another guy that got injured. He had a nice 46-yard catch to the 2-yard line, but he had to get taken out afterwards and had an MRI after the game. Now, on Monday, he was diagnosed with a low ankle sprain, and he's considered day-to-day, so it sounds like he escaped a serious injury, so he should be available for their next game. And finally, 49ers wide receivers Jeremy Curley and Torrey Smith didn't really play too much of a factor in a positive matchup against the Saints. I believe they both had a couple of catches for like 20 or so yards. Kaepernick hasn't really built much chemistry with these guys, and both of them are very hard to trust moving forward at this point. So I started Curley in one league. It was limited options. I kind of had no choice. I hope I don't have to go do that again. He's more of a bench guy if you want to hold on to him, but if Blaine Gabbert's not in the starting quarterback position, he doesn't have much value in my opinion. Kaepernick just doesn't want to throw to him.
And before we move on to our waiver wire pickups, do you want to add anybody from our cold cuts group?
Ladarius Green would be my one guy I'd add into this. He didn't play, and it doesn't look like he's going to play in Week 10 either. He's still kind of hampered by his injury. But even if he's not coming back after Week 10, he still might be a great pickup for your fantasy playoffs. Now, when I say this, if you're a team that you're like 8-1 or you're 7-2, you're in the playoff hunt basically, and you're pretty much sniffing a spot in the playoffs, and you need a tight end. I think he's a great speculative ad just to have on your bench. You can just bench him, forget about him for now. Hopefully you have enough guys now after the Week 9 has passed. These past 2 weeks were crazy with buys. I think there was 12 teams on a bye in 2 weeks. So with this passing, you should be pretty much almost ready to go with your full lineup.
Yeah.
And this guy, he could put it up. He could put up some numbers if Roethlisberger wants to throw to him. So, it relies on his health. It relies on a lot of other things. But I like his spot. I like his situation that he has if he gets healthy.
And that's going to about do it for our Week 9 recap. And we're going to get to our waiver wire pickups for Week 10. And you know what, John? Ladies first tonight, all right?
Go for it. You go, girl.
All right. Now, the first two guys I'm going to talk about, they were on John and I's list last week, but they're both still available in my 2 leagues. And they're also both coming off bye weeks, which is why I'm sure they weren't picked off. And I want to reiterate this to you guys so you remember and you can go out and pick them up. At number 1, I have JJ Nelson. He is still available in both of my leagues, which I think is crazy. He had 2 great weeks before the bye and is going to be starting this week since there's been a lack of production from both John Brown and Michael Floyd so far this year. So get your waiver claim in on this guy because I'm not expecting him to still be available after this week. Oh, and he kind of had 2 touchdowns the week before the bye. And the next guy I'm going to reiterate at number 2 is Rob Kelly. He was on John's list last week, and he's also still available in my 2 leagues. Now, Gruden said that he's going to handle the bulk of the carries this week, and before the bye, he had 87 yards and a touchdown. And I think he's going to be ready and excited to get back out there after having the bye. At number 3, I've got Dion Lewis. It looks like he'll be back this week. It would be his first of the season returning from that knee injury. But even if he doesn't play, he should in week 11. So I would stash him on your bench if you've got room. And if you have James White, you might want to consider switching him out for Dion Lewis if he is a sure start this week because his playing time is going to be the one that's more limited. At number 4, I have DeJuan Harris. And as long as Carlos Hyde remains out, I'd consider this start if you need a running back. He's coming off of a great week of 83 yards and a touchdown, and he only had 6 targets and 5 catches, which means he exploded on a few of those plays. So I definitely expect him to get a couple more targets this upcoming week. And at number 5, you might find this one a little bit surprising. We have already kind of touched on this. I decided to throw Paul Perkins on my list just because I don't really feel like he's owned out there by many people. And I have a feeling that he's going to get more playtime this week. I know, John, you said that the Giants, they're very careful with their rookies, but we got to be honest here. Rashad Jennings has just, I know he's been suffering from a bit of an injury, but he has just not been good all year. And the Giants just keep trying and trying to start him, but he's not making anything happen. And this past week, it was the same thing. And Perkins was finally given a bit more playing time. He didn't have as much playing time as Rashad, but I think if the Giants are smart, I'm thinking he's going to get the majority of time in the running back slot this week. I think you can risk that considering Rashad's not doing anything. I think it's a risk worth taking since our run game is just pretty terrible. So you heard it here first, John. I say Paul Perkins is going to have a decent week.
All right. I pretty much agree with a lot of the things you said on this list. I know Dion Lewis is a guy that is probably available in maybe 10 team leagues. I know a lot of my 12 team leagues he's out. Someone owns him, but I actually stashed him on IR.
Okay, that was smart.
Yeah, there's like a new rule that players that are listed on IR that's out for at least 8 weeks can be slotted into your lineup, even less than that actually in fantasy. So I was smart enough to draft him late in my draft and stash him in IR. and I picked up like a defensive lineman in free agency after I was sliding him in my lineup. So
Yeah, I know he's available in at least one of my leagues.
no, it's still a great call because like you said, he's probably not available in about 40 or 60% of leagues. So great list. I totally agree with pretty much everyone that you have on here. I liked the JJ Nelson analysis. Michael Floyd has pretty much vanished. He's a ghost. And Larry Fitzgerald, most consistent guy on the team, but Palmer likes to spread it around a bit, so I think Nelson becomes one of their best wide receivers on that team. I'm going to start off with a rookie running back that's going to make his first start of his career against the Bears. We talked about him earlier, Peyton Barber. He's going to get the opportunity. As like I said, he'll probably get about 20, maybe even 25 carries in this game. And he may not be a starter the following week because Jaquiz Rodgers should come back. But if you're in an emergency start, you need somebody desperately, this guy is most likely out on the waiver wire. So you could definitely pick him up and spot start him for this week only. If you want to spend about $23 on him, that should be enough. But there might be somebody else that puts more up, and that's kind of crazy, especially because it's only going to be for a week. So 23 for Barber. Number 2, I got Capri Bibbs. Kind of just talked about him briefly before. I think Kubiak is ready to give him more time, which he had said after the game. He earned more reps, and Booker didn't really look too good. It's crazy, man. Like a lot of these running backs, they look hot. They're the backup. They look so good, and then when they become a starter, they just completely fall flat on their face. I feel like a lot of the running backs that have earned a start this year from somebody that got injured or just got benched pretty much went through the same carousel, and it's just repeating over and over itself in different teams. So in any case, I like Bibbs for now. I think he's a great pickup. I have wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Macklin, don't think he's going to play this weekend. If Hill is still out there, I know a lot of 12-team leagues he's probably not, but if for some reason he's still out there, I think he's a great ad. I think if you spend about $15 to $18 on him, you should be able to get him, and you could put him in your flex. He's a great flex guy coming off with Macklin's injury and Travis Kelce getting ejected for some weird reason. You know what's funny? Now that I'm thinking about it, they may bench him for like a drive. I have a feeling we might not see Kelce in that first drive because of that. Andy Reid was pretty ticked off at him for getting ejected from the game. And it wasn't like they were in catch-up mode or they were pretty much just dominating the Jaguars. I mean, they were up, but they weren't up by that much. So I have a prediction that Kelce is going to be out for one drive going in.
All right,
Number 4,
let's see.
Number 4, I just have a weird feeling. Number 4, I got Rob Kelly. You mentioned him before. The one thing I'm worried about is Matt Jones. I know he's not 100% healthy right now, but if Jones doesn't start in this game, then Kelly becomes their starter. I think they're willing to give him another start. It's just how long will Jones stay on the sideline and how long will they give Kelly the ball? It's a weird backfield in Washington because you get Chris Thompson involved as well. So Kelly, he's on my low-end waiver. I still like him just because of the opportunity he presents if Matt Jones doesn't start. So spend about $12 on him. And number 5, I got Ladarius Green. I said it before, good stash guy. He could be a little bit of a factor coming into fantasy playoffs looking ahead. So if you want to spend just a couple of dollars on him, you can. I know a lot of people probably tried to get him last week. Maybe they did. Maybe they just left him out there. He's still out there. And if he is, then you can definitely take him. Like I said, he's probably not going to start this weekend, but he might be a factor going into the playoff here.
Another great list, John. Both great lists for anybody in need of a boost for their team heading into week 10. And that about does it for our recap show this week. But before we go, you have to let me in on a little something that's trending around the country, John. It's this thing called the Mannequin Challenge. What is this all about?
All right, so as with any other trend, it started with a bunch of teenagers, I'm guessing in high school. And basically the premise is that somebody plays a Ray Strembert song. A lot of the NFL teams that picked up on this don't do this, but in the original type of viral videos, this rap song plays, and people basically stand still like they're mannequins. And whoever the camera operator is will basically go to each person to see what their action is still, and record like about a 30 to 45-second video of this thing, and it's called the Mannequin Challenge. So naturally, the NFL, like they always do, pick up on these trends, and they ruin them. This is what they do. They ruin trends. And the Steelers started off with it on last Friday after practice, and they were all just basically standing still in the locker room. And it didn't work because there was like people outside of the locker room, and you could like see them clearly. They're like walking around, like talking and stuff. And it just didn't work. Like in order for this to be a thing, like the whole room, wherever you are, has to be completely silent. So then next on Sunday, the Giants did it, and they did a little bit of a better job. I think the locker room was pretty much all still. You couldn't really hear anything except for the camera guy moving around. And the Cowboys also did it on an airplane. Again, same premise. I believe they stuck Cole Beasley on the overhead place because he's so small. And it was finally ruined by Jerry Jones and the Cowboys owners. I mean, no surprise there. They tried doing it. I don't want to make fun of the elderly, but they literally couldn't keep it still. Like they were shaking while the video was recording. Pretty embarrassing. And when something like that happens, that's when you know a trend is dead. So thank you, Jerry Jones, for once again ruining a trend. I remember he was on like some weird rap track for Papa John's like a couple years ago, and for a good week or two he ruined rap. So
he doesn't belong on a rap track. Say that 10 times fast. Rap track. Say it, do it.
If I'll let you look it up. I'll even tweet it out for the people. It's a very embarrassing Papa John's rap commercial, and it's something that was like a one and done thing, which I'm glad they did because it was a killer.
Yeah, and now that you actually say that, I remember I noticed that the ESPN guys did this mannequin challenge. I just really wasn't sure what they were doing at the time. They were just all standing there frozen in time, pretending to be like walking. I didn't realize what was happening.
It could be confusing, I guess, to somebody that doesn't know what's happening because people are just standing there. You're like, okay, what, are you going to do something or what? And then it's just like the whole premise is just them standing still. So it's an interesting trend. I like it. It's just, once it gets mainstream, that's it. And the shelf life is like a couple of weeks at most. So whoever started it, kudos to them for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on this one and see how long it lasts. But anyway, we are going to head out of here. And as always, give us a follow on Twitter and SoundCloud at Fantasy Dopes, or visit www.fantasydopes.com for the latest on rankings and wire pickups. You can also find us on Stitcher now by searching Fantasy Dopes for anybody with Android phones. And if you like our product, do not be afraid to hit that donate button and help us improve, Dope Heads. Any final words for our audience, John?
Well, I know we didn't really mention too much of this Monday night game. I'll fastly go into it right now. Christine Michael, obvious start, may not be there anymore. He had one touchdown. And I actually tweeted out a link, or a GIF, I should say, and I was like, fantasy owners of Christine Michael are looking for him, and it was the GIF, or GIF, I should say, of Tom Hanks and the Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, I think that's his name, and they were both looking at some binoculars, and they were both frustrated. We got a lot of hits on that, actually. We got like over 25 retweets, so hopefully we're gaining somewhat of an audience on this. I know we're really not doing any promoting on it, but we'll see. With that being said, though, I just want to get to something really quickly. Your boy Russell Wilson, you were very excited about before we started this podcast going.
So excited.
Do you want to kind of?
Sure. In the first half of the game, he had already gotten more fantasy points than he has any other week from the rest of the year. So they didn't get much playing time in the second half, but he had 282 yards. He also got 2 touchdowns. This has definitely been the best week he has had in a while, and I hope that he is feeling better after suffering from that injury. It looks like he was feeling better. He ran one in for a touchdown by himself, and you know what? I hope that Russell Wilson is back.
Yeah, you know what? Going up against the Bills, they're not, a lie-down team. They have a pretty tough defense, so for him to do that, I mean, it helped that they were definitely at home, for sure, but maybe that's a confidence booster, and they kind of have a tough test next weekend, though. They're going to New England to face the Patriots on Sunday Night Football, so it could get a little dicey with Russell, but hey, you might want to start him. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 touchdowns tonight, passing touchdowns. This is the first time he has had a passing touchdown since week 4.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
very, very, that was a long time ago.
Yes, it was.
What I'm trying to say. So, yeah, I mean, if you got him, maybe you're feeling a little more confident with him now. Hopefully you didn't drop him like some people might have. Some people have like really quick trigger fingers too.
Trust me, I thought about it a few times.
But in any case, that's all I got. I know I want to sneak in that because we're recording as that game was going on, so we wanted to get that info out there. Figured I'd sneak it in on you before we left here.
Sounds good. Yeah, it was definitely a good game to watch for whoever was out there watching it. On that note, the Monday night game has ended, and so is our podcast for tonight, John. I say we get out of here, get some sleep.
Yep, and we'll be back.
We'll be with the people on Wednesday.
We'll be back Wednesday, stronger than ever, hopefully with Michael and Newborn on the mic.
Yeah, I don't know how much the Newborn's going to say, but...
He'll probably have plenty to say, trust me.
All right, on that note, we'll see you next time, guys.
Peace out, dope heads.